trying again, but Locke didn't want to miss this opportunity. He told the two to go back first, and said he would hunt the wild boar alone. So Kate had to take Michael back first, but as they walked, Kate suddenly stopped. She started taking off her pants. The next second, she climbed to the top of a tree and began testing the island signal. Michael could only sit on the ground, feeling frustrated. But just as the woman was getting the equipment ready, a roar suddenly came from the front. She was so scared that she dropped the equipment. Locke, who was not far away, was still unaware and continued searching for the prey. Just then, there was a movement from the wild boar in the grass ahead. Locke found the right position and chased forward quickly, but suddenly, the boar's grunts turned into screams. On the other side, when Kate and Michael returned to the camp, Jack came to ask about the hunting situation. He was told that Locke might have been killed. Just as the two were feeling sorry for Locke, Jack suddenly noticed a strange man watching them not far away. Jack stood up and chased after him without hesitation. But when he rushed into the woods, the man had disappeared without a trace. But Locke suddenly walked out of the dense forest. He had even caught a wild boar. That night, everyone began to pray for those who had died in the plane crash. During this time, Michael asked Locke if he had seen the monster. Locke said he hadn't. Michael didn't ask further. He just felt that Locke was becoming more and more unusual. The food problem was solved for the time being, but the fresh water stored on the plane was also about to run out. Just as Jack was getting annoyed about this, the mysterious man appeared again, but this time was different. He didn't disappear out of thin air. Instead, he stood there motionless. Jack approached carefully, wanting to know who the man was. But when he saw the man's face clearly, he was so scared that he collapsed to the ground, his face full of disbelief. It was his father, who had just died not long ago. Jack hurried to chase him, but in his hurry, he tripped over a tree branch and rolled down the hillside. He was about to fall off a cliff and die. But luckily, he grabbed a vine in time and saved his life. Jack couldn't climb up even with all his strength. At the critical moment, a big hand suddenly reached out from the bottom of the cliff. Jack looked closely and saw it was Locke who had found him. Later, Locke was curious about what Jack was doing on a mountain. Jack didn't hold back and told Locke about the mysterious man. He had thought Locke would think he was crazy. But unexpectedly, Locke not only believed him, but also told Jack that this place was very strange. It would be normal even if Ultraman appeared. After that, Locke left to continue looking for water sources. But as night fell, something even more strange happened. Jack clearly remembered seeing his father die with his own eyes. Moreover, he had taken this plane specifically to transport his father's body back to the United States. Just as he was struggling to figure this out, footsteps suddenly came from behind. Jack grabbed a torch and chased after the sound. In his panic, Jack accidentally found a cave. There was a big waterfall inside. Looking down, he saw a doll in the water, and there were more dolls on the ground as well. Jack followed the direction of the dolls and unexpectedly found the wreckage of the plane's cargo hold. When he saw that his father's coffin was intact, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. But when he opened the coffin, he was so scared by what was inside that he stepped back repeatedly. The body was gone. Jack completely broke down. He didn't understand why his father had faked his death, why he had appeared on the island, and why only he could see him while no one else could. Only then did Jack return to the camp. But just as the mysterious incidents came to an end, Sid climbed to the top of the mountain, planning to find the location of the mysterious distress signal transmitter on the island for the radio frequency band. But just as the equipment started to respond, he was suddenly knocked unconscious. Strangely enough, the attacker didn't hurt Sid further. After destroying the signal device, the attacker left. Based on the known clues, Sid deduced that someone didn't want to leave the island, which was why they had destroyed only the radio. But there was no way to find out who that person was. So, the case had to be put on hold for the time being. However, they couldn't wait to find the signal source. So, Sid said goodbye to everyone and planned to risk hiking across the island to find it. After walking for an unknown time, Sid was resting by the beach when he suddenly found a section of steel wire buried in the sand not far away. Curious, the man followed the wire. But not long after, something blocked his way. He squatted down and saw it was a thin iron wire. But this was a desolate island with no human presence. Sid lifted his foot carefully, tried to keep his balance so he could walk around it. He hadn't taken a few steps when he heard a click sound. Before he could react, he was suddenly lifted into the air by a trap and crashed into a tree, losing control of his body. After a short rest, Sid resolutely straightened his body, grabbed the branch tightly, and then before he could think, yanked the branch out. After that, he fainted from the pain. Knight fell quickly and Said slowly woke up from his coma. But before he could call for help, a mysterious person suddenly appeared. Cut the rope. Said fell head first, and then he lost consciousness again. After an unknown amount of time, when he woke up again, he found himself in a dimly lit room. His hands and feet were tightly tied, and he couldn't move at all. A woman's voice kept asking questions in his ear, leaving Said confused. So he instinctively said he didn't know. But this angered the woman, who immediately used a 100,000-volt electric shock on him. Said quickly explained that he was a survivor of the plane crash. He had come here to find a distress signal that had been transmitted for 16 years. The woman was shocked to learn that her signal had been transmitted for 16 years, and even more shocked that someone had actually received it. The woman suddenly hit Said unconscious with the butt of her gun. When he woke up again, the woman had gradually calmed down and started chatting with Said. During the conversation, Said suddenly noticed that she seemed to care a lot about a broken music box. Hoping to win her favor, Said offered to fix it for her, but the woman didn't play by the rules. She stood up, took a syringe from the cabinet, sharpened the needle with sandpaper, and stabbed it into her skin right in front of Said. A few hours later, Said woke up from his sleep. Jolted in fright, the woman in front of him quickly apologized, saying she had no malicious intent. She just wanted to move him to a more convenient position to repair the music box. Seeing the woman's demeanor soften, Said threatened her to tell him the whole story first. Otherwise, he would never help her. With no other choice, the woman began to explain she was actually a member of a scientific expedition team that had encountered a storm while on a mission at sea. Their ship had run ground on this island. Due to severe damage to the hull, they had no choice but to settle there temporarily. Said asked what she meant by the line had killed all of them and the distress signal he had received. Upon hearing Said's question, the woman seemed to recall something terrifying. Her expression turned tense as she said there was a place on the island called the Black Rock where infected people lived. When Said asked if she had seen them with her own eyes, the woman backtracked, saying she hadn't. She had only heard voices occasionally. Hearing this, Said finally understood the woman was probably hallucinating from being alone for too long, and focused on fixing the music box for her. During this time, he also kept a backup plan. He didn't hand over the screwdriver, planning to find a chance to escape. Just as the woman was happily holding the repaired music box, a roar suddenly echoed around them. She grabbed her shotgun, ready to face the threat. As soon as the woman left, Said quickly used the screwdriver to break the chains. Then he took the island map, all the data materials, slung the shotgun over his shoulder, and fled into the woods. Unfortunately, the woman returned and noticed the commotion. She picked up her gun and walked towards Said's location. At the critical moment, Said had luckily circled around behind her and threatened her to drop the shotgun. However, the woman not only refused to comply, but also slowly raised the shotgun. Said thought she would end up dead on the spot. But the next second, he realized the woman had known all along that there were no bullets in the gun. Even though Said had thought about killing her, the woman had no intention of harming him. With no one to talk to, Said invited her to return to the camp with him. The woman said nothing. She just lingered for a moment to feel the presence of another human being, then stood up to leave. Before departing, she left Said with a warning. The place you're going back to, you need to keep an eye on those people. Said was confused by her words. He couldn't help but stand up and ask why. The woman replied, people know how to pretend. Ignoring the injury on his leg, he raced toward the camp as fast as he could, but disaster struck earlier than expected when the pregnant woman woke up. She was horrified to find her unborn baby gone. The sound of a baby crying kept echoing in her ears. Confusing her, she followed the cry. But halfway there, she encountered a man fortune telling his eyes had no whites, making him look extremely terrifying. Yet, the woman didn't seem scared at all. Soon she reached a baby stroller from which the crying was coming. Muffled by a white cloth, the woman felt scared, but to find out where her baby was, she mustered the courage to lift the cloth. Inside, however, was just a pile of minced meat. The woman was instantly petrified with fear. Charlie heard her scream and rushed over, only to find Claire had lost her mind and was attacking everyone around her. Luckily, Charlie calmed her down in time. They initially thought she had just had a nightmare, but when she looked down, the blood on her hands was still there. The next day came quickly. Dr. Jack examined Claire's palms and found that she had clenched her fists so tightly that her nails had pierced her skin, causing the bleeding. It was all a false alarm, but things were far from simple. That night, while the pregnant woman was still asleep, she was suddenly attacked. A flash of a knife danced across her belly. Everyone was woken by her screams and hurried to gather around Claire, but they found nothing out of the ordinary nearby. Claire said someone had stabbed her in the stomach with a knife. But when Jack lifted her shirt to check, there were no wounds on her belly. Jack thought Claire was suffering from prenatal anxiety and didn't take her claims seriously. He suggested treating her with a sedative. This immediately enraged Claire, who felt Jack didn't believe her. She packed her things and left the cave. When Charlie heard the news, he rushed after her to persuade her to come back. But not long after, Claire suddenly felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. It seemed like she was going into labor. Charlie hurried to the cave to inform Jack. By coincidence, he ran into their fellow survivor Ethan on the way. So, Charlie asked Ethan to go tell Jack while he went back to look after Claire. Not long after Charlie returned, Claire's abdominal pain gradually subsided. She could even walk on her own again. The two then planned to head back to the camp, but halfway there, they ran into Ethan. He hadn't brought Jack with him. Instead, he stared at Claire with a strange, unblinking gaze. At the same time, Sed suddenly returned to the camp. Limping, he told Jack that there were other people on the island. Before Jack could process this, Hugo brought more news. There was an extra survivor named Ethan. Among them, someone who hadn't been on the plane. This revelation sent shock waves through the group. Jack instantly realized the danger and rushed to search for Claire and Charlie with lock catch, but it was too late. Apart from some signs of struggle, there was no trace of Claire or Charlie at the scene. Locke suggested returning to the camp first to gather supplies before continuing the search. But Jack was already in a panic. He blamed himself if he hadn't misjudged Claire's condition. She would never have left the camp, and none of this danger would have happened. He rushed into the jungle alone to search, but soon realized he was going in circles, unable to find his way. It wasn't until Locke caught up with him and the others that they resumed the search. Fortunately, they found one of Charlie's fingerless gloves along the way, proof they were on the right track. Unfortunately, they soon reached a fork in the road with footprints leading down both paths. The four of them decided to split up, but it began to rain heavily, making the search far more difficult. After walking for an unknown time, Jack found another of Charlie's gloves. But before he could feel relieved, Claire's screams echoed around them. Once they roughly located the sound, Jack climbed up along a vine without hesitation, with Kate following closely behind. Jack lost his grip and fell head over heels from the top of the slope. When he finally managed to roll over, he found Ethan standing right in front of him. Ethan kicked Jack without a word and warned him, "If you keep following me, I'll kill Charlie." He mustered all his strength to grab Ethan's legs and threw him hard to the ground. Jack then pressed his advantage. In return, Ethan landed several heavy punches, knocking Jack to the ground. A few minutes later, Kate found the unconscious Jack before they could even catch their breath. Jack insisted on continuing the search. Kate hurried to stop him, explaining that the rain had washed away all traces. But Jack ignored her and walked forward on his own. After walking for an unknown time, the two found Charlie hanging unconscious in midair from a tree. Jack didn't dare to delay. He rushed over to rescue Charlie. But by then, Charlie had already stopped breathing. No matter what Jack did to revive him, there was no response. Kate, unable to face the truth, turned away and burst into tears. But Jack still refused to give up. He kept hitting Charlie's chest harder and harder. Kate watched in horror as he grew more frantic. Just as Jack was about to give up and accept Charlie's death, Charlie suddenly took a breath. The two wept with joy, then carried Charlie back to the camp. When Jack asked about Claire, Charlie only said faintly, "Claire's the one they want," and refused to say anything more. Meanwhile, Locke's group was still searching the jungle. Boone saw that it was about to rain again and suggested returning the way they came and trying again the next day. But Locke wasn't ready to give up. He told Boone to go back first while he continued forward. With that, he tossed the only flashlight to Boone. Boone failed to catch it, and both of them froze. Why did the flashlight make a clinking sound like metal when it hit the dirt? Locke dug up the soil and found a metal plate underneath. He then tapped around with his knife. There was an empty space below. Locke said, "This is what we've been looking for." The two began digging and soon uncovered a strange metal hatchet's design was so unusual that it didn't seem to be from Earth. To find out what was inside, they secretly took a fire axe from the camp, hoping to force the hatch open, but they couldn't even scratch the glass window. Loach decided to return to the camp first to plan their next move. On the way back, Boone suggested telling the others about the hatch. Otherwise, their repeated empty-handed returns from hunting would only arouse suspicion. But Locke seemed to be hiding something. He firmly opposed Boone telling anyone about the hatch. Boone had no choice but to compromise, but he insisted on telling his sister Shannon. Locke saw how determined he was and reluctantly agreed. But before Boone could take 2 steps, Locke suddenly attacked him from behind, hitting him on the back of the head. When Boone woke up again, he was tied up tightly. Locke was calmly mixing some unknown liquid nearby. Boone was terrified. He begged Locke to untie him, but Locke ignored him. Instead, he held Boone's head down and slathered the unknown liquid all over his wound. Locke prepared to pack up and leave. Perhaps his conscience got the better of him before leaving. He tossed a knife to Boone, then hurried back to the camp, ignoring Boone's desperate shouts. As time passed, Boone tried to reach the knife with his hands, but Locke's binding was cleverly done every time he stretched his front hand forward. The ropes around his back tightened. Helpless, Boone could only shout for help, hoping someone would hear him. Meanwhile, Sed was drawing a topographic map of the island. He suddenly heard footsteps behind him and turned around only to find Locke passing by. During their conversation, Locke learned that Sed was trying to draw a map. He took the initiative to give Sed his only compass. Sed was confused. Why would a hunter who spent so much time in the jungle give away his only navigation tool? But to finish his map quickly, Sed didn't overthink it. However, he soon realized something was wrong. The compass had been tampered with. Its directions were completely reversed. Sed told Jack the truth, suspecting Locke was deliberately sabotaging their efforts. Jack was confused and couldn't make up his mind about what to do. On the other side, Boone was asleep when he was suddenly woken by a voice. Boone was confused, thinking he was hallucinating until the voice called again. He realized it was his sister coming to rescue him and shouted loudly. But his sister had also been tied up and brought there. Before Boone could react, he heard the monster's roar and his sister's screams for help in the distance. Boone didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, enduring the agony of his dislocating arm, and reached for the knife. Finally, just as his arm was about to give out, he grabbed the knife and pulled it free, and raced toward the sound of his sister's voice. He found her under a big tree and rushed to cut her bonds, but the monster had already spotted him. Boone managed to untie the ropes just in time. He grabbed his sister and fled into the woods. At the critical moment, Boone and his sister hid in the bushes nearby, narrowly escaping. After an unknown time, the area outside grew quiet. Boone mustered the courage to go out and check the monster was gone. Shannon then asked Boone why Locke had kidnapped her for no reason. Boone didn't answer, planning to talk about it once they got back to the camp. But on the way back, Shannon kept asking questions. Frustrated, he told her about the hatch they had found. But this revealed their location. The monster appeared instantly. The two turned and ran. The monster grabbed Shannon and lifted her into the air, tearing at her violently. He then followed the direction the monster had left and found some blood by a small river. Boone looked upstream and saw his sister lying on the rocks by the riverbank. But what he saw made him stare in horror. His sister's upper body was covered in mangled flesh, her clothes soaked through with blood. Boone held her in his arms, calling her name over and over, but his sister was already dead. Night fell quickly. Boone returned to the camp and saw Locke sitting by the campfire, warming himself as if nothing had happened. The anger in his heart boiled over. He pulled out his knife and charged at Lockcatch. After a scuffle, Boone pinned Locke ground, demanding to know why he had kidnapped his sister and let her be killed by the monster. But Locke looked extremely surprised when he heard this, saying, "I didn't kidnap Shannon." Boone refused to believe him. Locke then asked, "If you held your sister's body, why is there no blood on you?" Boone was stunned. He had held his sister's corpse. Why wasn't there any blood on him? Locke pushed him away. He was about to ask for more details when Shannon's voice suddenly came from behind. Boone looked up and saw his sister standing unharmed by the water fetching water. His mind went blank, but then he suspected the substance Locke had put on his head was to blame. Locke denied it, explaining it was just antiseptic. He suspected the monster had deliberately tricked Boone, but he had no idea what its purpose was. Yet, strange things didn't stop there. The next day, while Kate and Sawyer were swimming in the lake, they found two human bodies at the bottom with a suitcase placed beside them. They brought the suitcase to shore. Sawyer noticed Kate seemed to recognize it and teasingly tried to claim it for himself. Kate forced herself to stay calm, saying, "It doesn't matter who takes it." But after Sawyer fell asleep, Kate snuck into his tent, planning to take the suitcase. However, Sawyer had been waiting for her. He grabbed her arm and pinned her down. Kate reacted quickly, slamming her head into Sawyer's nose and reaching for the suitcase. But the more she fought for it, the more determined Sawyer was to stop her. Kate had no choice but to leave. This only made Sawyer more curious about what was inside. The next day, he tried to break the suitcase open, but it was harder than he expected. Michael walked by and suggested he smash it open with brute force. Sawyer took his advice, went into the woods to find a rock, and started hitting the suitcase against it. But after several attempts, he still couldn't open it. Furious, he climbed to a high spot, planning to drop the suitcase and break it open on impact. But this didn't work either. Worse, Tate, who had been hiding nearby, took advantage of his frustration, grabbed the suitcase, and ran away with a triumphant smile. He chased after her. Kate, being a woman, couldn't outrun him for long. Sawyer soon caught up and pinned her down. Kate tried to use the same head, but trick again, but Sawyer dodged it easily. When they stood up, Sawyer offered to give her the suitcase on one condition. She had to tell him what was inside that made her so desperate to get it. But Kate fell into silence, staring at Sawyer without saying a word. Sawyer sighed, shrugged his shoulders, and walked out of the woods. But Kate didn't give up. She went to Jack for help, telling him the suitcase contained a large number of weapons and that it was dangerous for Sawyer to have it. But Jack wasn't easily fooled. Whatever was in that suitcase, it must be more important than just weapons to make Kate so anxious he insisted they open it together. Kate agreed without hesitation. Jack then went to Sawyer to ask for the suitcase, but Sawyer refused without a second thought. Jack then threatened him, "If you don't give it to me, I'll stop giving you the antibiotics for your arm." Sawyer backed down completely. Jack got what he wanted, but before leaving, Sawyer warned him, "Don't trust Kate." Jack took the suitcase back to the cave, took the key from Kate, and began the long-awaited task of opening it. As expected, the suitcase was filled with weapons for AWM sniper rifles along with thousands of rounds of ammunition. But the weapons didn't matter. The real secret was a small, unassuming envelope, Kate's secret. Jack handed her the envelope and told her to open it herself. But it turned out to be just a model airplane. Jack was completely dumbfounded and asked Kate, "What the hell is this thing?" Kate didn't want to answer. Jack stepped forward to press her for answers. Kate broke down and told him it belonged to the person I loved. "I accidentally killed them." A beautiful woman was bathing in the sea in a bikini, but her husband, a total chauvinist, insisted on taking her home immediately, but one man kept staring at her. The two were about to fight when the woman suddenly slapped the man across the face, leaving him stunned. It would have been normal for a wife to defend her husband, but things took a weirder turn. The woman secretly went to Michael and revealed her husband's secrets. Two men snuck into the woods, but a strange noise suddenly echoed around them. One of the men collapsed to the ground instantly. Charlie, confused, glanced nervously around, but though a man was walking toward him, no doubt the one who attacked. Charlie grabbed his stick, determined to strike first, but the man easily dodged. The man then threatened Charlie, "By tomorrow evening, you must bring the pregnant woman from your group here. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you." With that, he turned and left. The survivors were furious when they heard the news, but the enemy was hidden while they were exposed. Their only option for now was to set up defenses. They laid countless tripwire traps around the camp. Next, they lit bonfires around the camp and posted sentries every 10 m, rotating 24 hours a day. But disaster still struck. A man was found dead on the beach the next morning, his neck twisted clean off by hand, yet no one had noticed a thing. Panic swept through the camp instantly. Some even began avoiding Claire, blaming her for everything. Claire, still in the dark, sensed the tension and asked her friends. Only then did she learn the truth. At the same time, Jack planned to take the initiative. He retrieved a mysterious leather case from the bushes, made sure no one was following him, then opened it carefully. Inside were 4 police issue pistols. Now they had weapons. The group suggested using Claire as bait to lure him out, but Charlie firmly opposed the idea. As the 4 argued, Claire spoke up. She was willing to go. She didn't want anyone else to die because of her. There was no time to waste. A group of 6 set off immediately. Charlie didn't know how to use a gun, so he stayed behind on standby. After they left, it began pouring rain. Claire walked alone through the woods while the others hid nearby in ambush. Zed took position high up to keep watch. Sawyer guarded the flanks. Shaq prepared for a frontal attack, and Lot covered the rear, waiting for their target to take the bait. Just as Claire let her guard down in the next second, a man charged at her. Claire turned and ran, but at the critical moment, Jack rushed in from the side and tackled Ethan to the ground, but his pistol slipped out of his hand. Jack didn't care about the gun. He seized the opportunity and grappled with Ethan. By the time the others arrived, Jack had already captured Ethan alive, planning to take him back for questioning. Sawyer wanted to show off, so he raised his gun and pressed it to Ethan's head to scare him. But in the next instant, Ethan was shot dead. Everyone